All right, today we're going to tear into something really cool. This isn't just a set of instructions, it's more like a blueprint for a mechanical marvel. We're going to follow the maker's journey, taking this incredible kit designed by Alan Massey and turning it into a beautiful, working wooden gearbox.
And that's really the big question here, isn't it? What does it actually take? Because it's about way more than just gluing part A to part B. It's a dive into real craftsmanship, a test of your patience, and honestly, it's a hands-on lesson in the beautiful dance of gears and mechanics.
So you should think of this whole project as a call to adventure. It's a challenge for sure. It's going to test your precision, your patience, and how well you really get how physical things work together to create motion. This is not just some model. It's a puzzle made of wood and physics.
And you know, the very first piece of advice from the designer himself is pretty much the golden rule for any serious project, right? Read the entire manual before you even touch a single piece. You have to understand the full picture, the whole journey you're about to go on. It is the first and honestly the most critical step to not messing this up. Okay, so every craftsman needs their tools, and this project is no different. But this isn't just some random shopping list. It's a really carefully chosen set of items that are going to help you work with the wood and, more importantly, overcome the big challenge of friction. Let's see what we're working with. So you've got some interesting choices here. You could go with a super fast cyanoacrylate glue. You probably know it as super glue for a nearly instant bond. Or you could use UV epoxy if you want a little more time to get things perfect. You're going to need 2 different grits of sandpaper for that perfect finish, and this is super important, paste wax for lubrication. The other stuff is basically there to let you clean and customize your creation to make it your own. Now this is where it gets kinda crazy. Look at that number. 0.03 millimeters of precision. This is not your weekend woodworking project where close enough is good enough. No way. This is a game of microns. If you sand just a tiny bit too much off a part, the whole mechanism could just stop working. So yeah, precision is everything here. So with our tools ready and our minds set on being super precise, we can finally start the build. And you know, every machine needs a world to live in. So the first stage is all about crafting the box itself. This is the foundation that's going to hold all the mechanical magic that's coming next.
The whole process here is methodical. You have to be patient. First, you dry fit everything. No glue yet. You just put it together to check how all the indents line up and make sure the little dovetail joints fit snugly. And you have to be careful here. Those joints are a classic part of fine woodworking, but they're delicate. Too much force and they'll snap. Only when everything is perfectly square and tight do you finally commit and add the glue.
Okay, with the box built, we now have to face the main villain of this entire project. And it's not some tricky gear or a complicated part. Nope, it's an invisible force that can bring the entire machine to a grinding halt. We're talking about friction.
I mean, the designer, Alan Massey, he could not be any clearer about this. He repeats this line like a mantra all the way through the instructions. In a machine that's made of wood, rubbing against wood, friction isn't just a small problem, it is the enemy, and you have to actively defeat it.
So how do you beat this enemy? Well, you've got a simple but super meticulous 3-step battle plan. First, you sand. You sand everything that moves until it's perfectly smooth, especially the little dowels that act like axles. The instructions say this is a critical step. Then, you clean. You get rid of every single speck of soot from the laser cutting and all the sanding dust, because that stuff will make the part stick. And finally, you wax. You put paste wax on every single moving surface. This whole protocol, this is what makes the difference between a beautiful, smoothly working model and a seized-up sculpture that doesn't do anything.
And now for the really exciting part. With our foundation built and our enemy, friction, held at bay, we can finally start to build the heart of the machine. This is the moment that simple box starts to get its mechanical soul.
So, inside the box, we're dealing with 2 main types of assemblies. On the sides, you have these gears that need to spin totally freely on dowels that don't move. But on the front, you've got the crankshaft, which is a much more complex system where the shaft itself is the part you turn by hand to make everything else go.
For those side assemblies, the instructions are super specific. The gears get held in place with these little things called lock circles, and you have to press them on really firmly, making sure there is absolutely no extra wiggle or play. Any tiny bit of slop there can have a ripple effect through the whole system and just ruin the smooth operation of the box.
And this right here is probably the most high-stakes moment of the whole build. When you attach those big gears that are going to lift the lid, they have to be in the exact same tooth position on both the left and right sides. If you're off by even a single tooth on one side, the lid won't open straight.
It's one of those moments where you have to check, double-check, and then check a third time before you commit.
So let's talk about that crankshaft. What is it? Well, it's basically your interface with the machine. It's the handle you turn that takes your energy and translates it into the rotational force that brings that whole amazing gear train to life.
Putting this crankshaft together is a whole multi-stage process. First, you build the shaft itself. Then you build this stack of knobs and gears that slides onto it. You even build your own little wooden bearings to hold the shaft in place. And the manual warns you again and again and again, do not get any glue on the shaft itself. It absolutely has to spin freely inside that stack and inside the bearings you just made. It's a really intricate little dance of parts that requires your full attention.
And then, after all that precision, all that sanding and waxing and careful alignment, you get to the final stage. You're not just holding a collection of flat wooden parts anymore. You're holding a three-dimensional, functional work of art that you brought to life.
I really love this quote from the instructions because it reminds us that this is more than just mechanics. There's real artistry here. You can stain the wood any color you want. You can trim the dowels so they're flush with the box or leave them long. The final look is totally up to you. It's a form of personal expression, and it makes every single box unique to the person who built it.
You know, the final moment of assembly is almost poetic. It's when the gears on the front crankshaft finally mesh with the gears on the side assemblies. That's the point where all these separate systems that you so painstakingly built become one single integrated machine. You give that crank a turn, and the entire thing just comes to life.
And that really brings us to a final thought, doesn't it? Finishing a project like this leaves you with more than just a really clever box. It kind of leaves you with a question. In our world, which is so full of intangible digital clicks and swipes, what's the value? What is that deep satisfaction you get from building something real, something physical and mechanical with your own two hands? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this maker's journey.